Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Gemini Beauty believes in beauty for a cause, and in their case, the cause is lupus. The team at Gemini is changing the skincare game for good. We thank GSK for their focus on autoimmune disease and their continued support of Lupus LA. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and as always, I want to thank our sponsors, GSK Pharmaceuticals and the great folks at Gemini Beauty. Today, we are talking to Regan Birr. Regan is, you're going to love her. She is super fantastic. We're going to talk about her book, her exercise regimen for autoimmune patients, and we're going to talk about the sport of curling. Yes, I can tell you we have never talked about that on this podcast. I am sure of it, but we are going to do that today. And it is a unique way that Regan and her husband are raising money for lupus research. So we love that. Welcome to the show, Regan.
Thank you so much, Adam. This is amazing. And yeah, I imagine living in sunny LA, you don't see a lot of curling out there. Curling is all over the country, including in your neck of the woods. But yes, we're in the Mecca here, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and it's great. It's a sport we love.
I have always wanted to try it. I will tell you that, but we'll get to that. Let me backtrack first, and then we'll get to curling. But tell me a little bit about you're born in Canada, and tell me a little bit about your personal lupus story before we get into all of the things that your lupus story has spawned.
Well, thank you. Well, right. I grew up in Canada in small town Saskatchewan, a small town of 1,000 people called Shelbrooke, just north of Saskatoon, one of our bigger centers. And when I was a kid, pretty early on, I knew something was wrong, but I was never diagnosed with lupus. As I got older and I had different happenstances occur, including like a major sunburn and then finding out I had low platelets, it wasn't until I was in university that a rheumatologist told me, well, maybe you do have lupus. But then they thought about it a little bit and said, you know what? I don't think you have lupus and I don't think you ever will. So fast forward to graduating from university, and within 4 months of moving to Denver, Colorado, looking for a great life and better weather and lots of wonderful opportunities in the States, I was hit with my major lupus flare, which was kidney involvement. Mm-hmm. And luckily I had some symptoms at that time, because I've also learned that it can be really silent when your kidneys are affected. But I did have some telltale signs. And that's when I was definitively told, okay, you have lupus and it's causing kidney disease.
And when you had graduated from university, so yeah. What was the plan in Denver?
So I am a mechanical engineer. I got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. The best decision I could have made for a career. And I was working at a construction company in Denver, actually, as a person selling preventative maintenance contracts and bidding small jobs, just designing some, smaller contracting jobs and working in sales, mm-hmm. visiting commercial buildings, up on the roof, looking at the rooftop units. How many filters did they have? What am I going to price their quote at? Underneath buildings, getting into crawl spaces and just looking at the type of HVAC units they had. Yeah, literally, it was all over the place. And, I just think that combined with the stress of the job, and I'm sure, contractors and project managers have one of the highest stress jobs that exist. Just being in that environment, I think, caused everything to come together. It was like a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you got the diagnosis, was there some change that you had to make in your career path? Was there an immediate adjustment, or were you able to manage it?
Immediate. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Adam, thank you for asking that. That's such a thoughtful question. I did have to greatly cut my hours. I went from 40 hours a week to 24 after taking off about a month to figure out, like, oh my gosh, what really is this? getting the kidney biopsy to confirm the diagnosis and what type of kidney lupus I had, because as you know, there are multiple types, and what I would need for treatment. And I was shocked, scared. I didn't have any coping mechanisms. So I dove back into what I knew, which was working at that job, even though I hadn't been there very long. But it provided somewhat of a sense of stability. But shortly after that, I just found with the challenges of that job, I needed something else. I wanted to not be crawling on roofs or going up ladders, roofs down.
Right.
So, I had a friend of mine who worked for FlexiCoil, a large equipment manufacturing company. She was also a mechanical engineer. And she said, as a patent agent, she said, Regan, you like to write, you're an engineer. Why don't you become a patent agent too? So I did. And I was able to find a wonderful mentor and law firm that took me under their wing. But it took me a year and a half to get there. And then I had to take the patent bar exam all while I was undergoing my treatment. But I passed, and then I worked as a patent agent for that law firm and a couple other wonderful places for quite a handful of years. And that was really a blessing. Yeah. So you could sit at your desk.
No more crawling on rooftops.
No.
And you were able to get your lupus sort of under control, and the job shift, you think, made a big difference in that?
I do. The first thing that really made a difference was the right medication early. And so I know that for many populations, there's a huge disparity in that. I was lucky. I was on cyclophosphamide, Cytoxan, for 2.5 years. But it worked for me. My hair stopped falling out once I started taking it. So that was a big help. But I did still feel pretty crummy at them. Like, I don't know about you, and what your symptoms were, but I had severe joint pain, the kind that keeps you up at night and just makes the tears spontaneously like come out of your eyes, like when you stub your toe,
Yeah.
And so I needed a cane to get up and down the stairs. So it was lifestyle changes that really started to ramp me up on the way to health.
And you're, at this point, you're pretty young coming out of university. Right. How does that affect you socially, and what's the impact on you're such a bright personality. Was that always the case? Did that power you through?
Well, I have really been blessed in my life with wonderful people around me. So I don't take the credit, honestly. I think I have always liked to be around people. So being diagnosed with lupus and all that isolation was hard for me. But I one of the things that happens in lupus is you can lose your primary relationships. And my first husband, I don't like to say ex-husband, I like to say first husband, because we have tremendous respect for each other to this day, and always really helped me get through it. He came to every blood draw. He came to every appointment in the hospital where, you go in, you get the pre-stuff dripped in, then your meds, and then you got to wait a little and go home, and was there. And that was pivotal and supported me when I started my lifestyle changes. Of course, things happen. And oddly enough, when I started getting better and wanted to change, you just sometimes never knew what it meant until then, but people grow apart. So that happened. And this, no hard feelings at all. But I also had a good care team around me. The nurses who gave me my medication, there would be 2 every time I would you could book in outpatient at the hospital, your appointment. And I made sure I always had those 2 women help me, because one of them was a flight nurse and she could deal with my tricky veins. And the other one, she actually held my hand. So that was helpful, because especially the first one was tough, but the ladies were there. And then another huge part of it was my family, my sister and my parents were always there for me. And that was it, because we didn't tell people that I had lupus. So you could very much feel alone. So thank goodness I had those folks around. And then, I guess I did always have the thought and the expectation that I would get better. I just didn't know how or when.
I feel like you have a really positive outlook. And we're going to take a break in a second, and we're going to talk about the lifestyle changes, et cetera. But I feel like the positive outlook that you have is really important to your success. Would you agree?
Sure, I think so. And but that gets brought out over time, and when you surround yourself with other people who think the same way. So, I mean, I don't know if this is the right time in this podcast to mention my wonderful current husband, who I've already been married to for 10 years. It's gone by like that. He is a wonderful support. We're very like-minded. He is the person who sees the forest through the trees, or I forget if I'm mixing that up, but keeps everything in perspective and is a calming influence and supports me 100% in the way I approach life. And we're very similar that way too. And then I think that has ramped up to what you see. I still am surprised when people say that they think I have high energy, but I feed off of his. And I think that's the reason that I continue to be well, and that he helped me get even higher up in my wellness journey. Yeah. So I like to say, you know, if you
That's fantastic.
Isn't it? I know you have a partner you love.
It is.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yes, for sure. No, it's absolutely makes a huge difference in you know, that going through this experience and having somebody to talk to, or having somebody that appropriately ignores your conversation when you need them to, you know, when you're freaking out about something and you say, you know, this happened last month, don't worry about it. And like, you need that reassurance. So I think that's, I think that's so important for sure. All right, let's do this. I want to get into all the other stuff. So let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about curling and exercise and lifestyle changes and all of it. We'll be right back.
Please visit our online store at lupusla.org. By purchasing Lupus LA products, you are directly supporting lupus patients and their families. For more information, visit lupusla.org.
We are back on the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight, talking to Regan Birr. And before the break, we were talking about your lupus journey. But tell me now, you made some significant lifestyle changes. And not only did you make those changes, but you've turned it into a business that's going to really help others with autoimmune conditions. So I see the book behind you. Why don't we hold the book up? Let everybody see it. We'll start with the book and then work backwards to how this all came to be.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm really happy about this. And this is a snippet from the book. So it is a book, and it's part of a larger book that's going to include more depth for the exercise and some nutrition and mindset. So that's what it is: mindset, diet, and exercise to help us have a well-rounded, realistic, positive approach to our wellness.
Excellent. And so where did this begin for you?
So early on, so in the middle of my chemo, I started getting really frustrated, and I was feeling bad with the fatigue as well as the joint pain. And somewhat coincidentally, I found something that wholly really turned my life around. I found a program that can help reduce facial acne. My sister was getting married, and I wanted my face. I always struggled with that. I wanted it to look better. And so I tried an anti-inflammatory diet. And for a month, I was strict with it. I stuck to it, didn't even put sugar on my oatmeal, put cinnamon on instead. And I could eat a lot. Like, it was great. Like, you didn't really feel like you were restricted or let down in any way. It was actually fun. And immediately my energy went up and my pain went down, and my cholesterol dropped. So like, it dropped by a lot, even though I've always been pretty small, although I was up in weight then too. You know, prednisone adds weight, but I lost weight very quickly and kept it off as a side benefit to this thing. But oh my gosh, just having more energy, well, then it gave me the impetus to want to exercise. So that is the next piece of the story. Again, my sister, who has helped me so much in life, she said, "Regan, why don't you try exercising?" And I'm like, really? No. What? Well, she sent me a couple of links to some videos, and I tried following along. And when it came time to doing a squat, I tried a few times and I couldn't do it. I cried. Literally, I was crying. I was like, this is way too hard. It's too much pain. But I tried tried a few things, went back the next day, played around with it a little. And I found that if you just get your weight over your knees a little bit, that can help with the positioning of your body to evenly distribute the weight along your knees so you don't have as many pressure points. It reduces the torque on your knees. Well, then I could do a mini squat. Took it on from there, realized, I looked at my engineering textbooks like physics, and I realized that this is just low torque and it's really simple. Even with, a glass of water held out at a distance, if you reduce your lever, you reduce your torque. So I thought, like, this is amazing. I was so inspired. I just got my fitness training certification and started teaching it. And that was back in 2010, which is around the same time I started writing my book, because I thought, oh, here's some hope. I can take control. I can empower myself to feel better. And since then, I've been teaching my class. So it was in person then. Up until a year and a half ago, I started teaching it online so we could reach more people, have it at a convenient time. And, here we are.
So the exercise class that you teach is specifically designed for people with arthritic challenges.
Yes.
Because, and really what you've done is you've taken your mechanical engineering degree, married it with an exercise certification, and really tried to figure out ways that people that have autoimmune illness can exercise in a more productive way.
Exactly.
Did I sum it up correctly?
Perfectly. I couldn't have done it better myself.
And so what have you found? What's been the response from people who have struggled with finding the right exercise program when they find yours? Tell me what it's called too. I want to make sure I don't forget that.
It's called Regan Moves, fitness for people with challenges.
There you go.
Yeah. So whether it's energy or pain, post or pre-surgery, just had a baby, or you want to start exercise slowly and get into it. The nutshell of it is it's taken people from can't to can. I can exercise. I can lose weight. I've seen my clients have a decrease in their A1C numbers, have more energy, less pain. I've got a bunch of endorsements from rheumatologists and people in the physical therapy and chiropractic space. And that's the bottom line is, whoa, people can do more than they realized. And then it just grows from there.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's terrific.
Really
okay, let's talk curling. I know the audience has been waiting for the entire podcast. We're going to talk about your husband, Todd, and tell me about your entrance into curling and how this all came about, and then we'll talk about how it benefits lupus patients.
Okay, that's your cue, Burr. Come on over. Okay. We called him out.
We're going to get Todd to come on in.
That's right. If that's okay with you.
And tell me, Todd, tell me as you get set. Let's see.
Here we go. His
look at that.
His bronze world medal is, at work in a shadow box so people can see it. I know he's probably mortified I brought those out, but I insisted.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, Todd, a curling champion. My family and I always get a kick out of seeing curling on the Olympics, and as I'm sure so many people do. Tell me how did you get into the sport?
Well, I grew up with it. Like a lot of curlers in the States, it was just a family thing. My dad curled, my grandpa curled. I come from a small town in southern Minnesota called Mapleton. It's a very Scottish community. And that's Scotland is really big on curling as well as Canada. But yeah, it's a Scottish sport originally, and so yeah, if you're Scottish, we're not, but the community we came from was, and yeah, there was a lot of curling.
Yeah, and I grew up curling in Shellbrook as well. It was part of the school program. Everybody curled.
And did you? So I want to talk about now how you use curling to focus on lupus research, because I think that's. We're always looking for interesting ways to raise money and put eyeballs on the word lupus. And so this is certainly, I think you've taken that love of curling and turned it into something really important. So tell me about that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I had lived in California for a while after a move from Denver and still wanted to curl personally. And I curled with the local clubs there. It was really fun. But in the back of my mind, just always wanted to plan a celebrity pro-am for curling. And originally, I was thinking of calling it the Ladies of Curling for Lupus, but it blossomed into something else. And that's because Todd and I, started spending time together and knew pretty quickly that we were pretty dedicated to each other. And then when I moved to Minnesota, thanks to you-know-who, I said to him, okay, let's kick this off. I want to do a pro-am for curling for lupus. How do we do this? And he helped plan it with his experience in curling and knowing some of the folks around who have done it and canvassing advice from other folks who were doing similar things. And we decided to make it our own and run this big pro-am, which unlike golf, where you have a celebrity paired with a professional curler, so both are probably pretty amazing golfers. In this, the celebrity is the professional. So we take amateur curlers, which means any level who maybe doesn't have a medal like those we saw, and then we pair them with, number one, they got to be a nice person, and number two, the accolades count. So either a national winner in the U.S. or a provincial winner in Canada. So somebody who's been to worlds, like worlds where Todd won his bronze medal. And this past year, we had 3 Olympic gold medalists, 2 Olympic bronze medalists, several other Olympians in the building, and everybody else had those accolades. So it's one of the most, I'd say, prestigious events in the world for curling, where you have all these amazing athletes under one roof, and every single amateur team gets one of those athletes.
Now, do you have amateurs that if I've never curled before in my life and I wanted to sign up and bring it, is that possible? Or no, you have to have some experience?
Nope. We've had people before come in right off the street.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll teach them on the fly.
Exactly. You can get going in curling pretty easily. It takes a while to get really good at it, but yeah, we do. Now,
Regan, did the lupus diagnosis affect your ability on the ice?
Oh yeah. Like, again, Adam, if your experience was similar, I mean, I, for a while, had only 4 or 5 hours a day where I was not sleeping. Like, I was exhausted, had a bunch of pain, and it took me years to get back on the ice, actually. If I had known then what I know now, with the exercise and gentle movements to get started and maintain and grow, I wouldn't have sat on the couch that long, literally and figuratively. So in fact, when I first started curling, because some people knew that they heard I was from Canada, and they said, well, why don't you come and skip a game, like be the captain? Because I had more experience than they did. I remember it was the first time in a long time that I had stood for 2 hours. And I remember thinking when I got off the ice, oh my gosh, I did it. And this is going to be really good for me. I mean, my legs were wobbly, but that was the first time where I had to commit to thinking in a very strategic, focused way for 2 hours straight and physically standing and doing physical activity for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I love that you're back on the ice. I think it tells something about your whole journey. Tell me about where the money goes and what you've been able to do with the success of this event.
Sure. Thank you. Well, the money specifically right now, our primarily funded researcher is Dr. Timothy Newald, Vice Chair for Research at the Hospital for Special Surgery. And he is amazing. We initially learned of him and started funding him when he was working as a research rheumatologist in Rochester, Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic. And we followed him when he was hired away out east. And he's been working on interferon for many years. So he's been involved in the clinical trials and the development of anifrolumab, which you know very well. And he's currently working on another therapy. But the big thing we're also really excited about is a diagnostic tool that should hit the market pretty soon, which is a genetic tool with saliva in a tube that can show you if you have a genetic predisposition for developing lupus down the road. So can you imagine if you or I had walked to a doctor's office and had the chance to address it before we had
that's amazing.
Flare up. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
Todd, tell me about how Regan's story inspires you.
Well, that's a nice question.
Yeah. Well, I do tell people all the time, I just do as I'm told. And She's the little red tornado in this relationship. She is the fire, but yeah, it's really inspiring because I know she's come through a lot, and for her to have this type of energy and this type of dedication to what she's doing is really amazing.
But it wouldn't be possible without Todd. So it's a wonderful, I guess it's like a circle, and we're very blessed. And like I say, it's made all the difference. And if we can't have that for ourselves, hopefully we can be that, friendship or otherwise, for other people. But I feel the same way about you. He's got that calm energy, but Adam, it is steady and it is ever present. You can always rely on him for ideas, direction, guidance, support. Yeah. He's brought his own ideas that doubled what we raise, actually, including for how we run the skip auctions. So I'd say we're a good team.
Terrific. Well, I really appreciate it. I love this story. I love the two of you. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast and sharing it. And we're going to put up all the details where they can find your exercise program and your book and this fundraiser, because I think it's terrific. And who knows, maybe I will get out to Minnesota and try my hand at curling. That'd be pretty cool.
Anytime. Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, I will buy your plane ticket. Come on and see me. We'll get you on the night. We love that.
Well, you don't have to do that, but I appreciate that. Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. This was a joy.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.